While stumbling around the multiplayer maps of Black Ops 1, I found this sign here outside of firing range. It looks just like a similar sign that could be found in the campaign, except instead of saying Quezon, it says quarantine, which seems a lot like the word quarantine, and sure enough, it's the French version of the word. And that is strange on its own, like why is there a French sign in what is supposed to be an American military base? But it's also written in bloody lettering, and of course, that just immediately makes me think of zombies. But we never did get a zombies map in France. Well, until Origins came along, that is. And of course, that map is set among the World War I trenches in northern France, but I think this might be referencing something different. There's been a lot of talk over the years that the final DLC zombies map for Black Ops 1 was originally going to take place in Paris, and instead, as you all know, we got the map Moon. A fun map, a very different map considering its mechanics related to, well, not being able to breathe and having low gravity, but there's been this rumor that originally the map was going to be set in Paris, with the Eiffel Tower even being featured. Some say the file name for Moon is zombie_Paris, but this isn't true, at least on the PC version of Black Ops 1, it's zombie_Moon. But either way, this idea of there having been a cut Paris map is very interesting, and certainly was to the community back then too. And then somewhere along the way, Jason Blundell had an interview with Johnny J25 to confirm that this was the case, and that the map was scrapped. But was it? If such a map were to have existed, and this sign here in firing range was meant to reference it, well, that means it was most likely cut after the launch of Black Ops 1, and in fact, there seems to be more rumors, or perhaps theories is a better term, because I'm not sure if there's any evidence for any of this, but some seem to think it was cut because of an upcoming title from Infinity Ward, the next Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3. Which around 8 months after the release of Moon, Modern Warfare 3 had its release trailer debut, and what do you know, in that trailer we see the Eiffel Tower and multiple shots from missions in Paris. Could it be the case that we actually did get the cut Paris Zombies map, but instead of it being DLC for Black Ops 1 and having zombies, it was used for the campaign of Modern Warfare 3? Jason Blundell said in that interview with Johnny that the Paris Zombies map was planned to have the Eiffel Tower as a teleporter, and it would have teleported the player to an open area with a lot of zombies coming at them, just like Area 51 was implemented for Moon. And this would mean, just like for Moon, the tower would be on its own prefab or map file, and yep, that's exactly the case for Modern Warfare 3. There's 2 maps and 2 campaign missions that make up the Paris portion of the story. One of them has the Eiffel Tower just floating off in the distance, all on its lonesome with no map below it, while the other you fight right up to the base of the tower, and you can walk underneath it if you use a little bit of no-clip. The second thing that Jason Blundell said was that this cut Paris map was going to have the catacombs in it. Something that Paris does actually have in real life, but Blundell said that it would be right underneath the tower. Well, in Modern Warfare 3's campaign mission Bag and Drag, the first one set in Paris, we go into the catacombs. And honestly, they do feel very zombies-like. There's bones everywhere, it's very dark and eerie, and there's even this little area over here that looks like it could have been a window location. But perhaps that's a bit far-fetched, though. Either way, it really seems like something that was going to be used for zombies. This Paris Eiffel Tower teleporter map may have been repurposed by Infinity Ward and used for its campaign. And this got me wondering just how many times this may have happened and us players have never even realized. And in all honesty, I don't think we're going to be able to answer that question today. But this sort of flip-flop in map design could also happen the other way around, where a campaign mission inspires a zombies map instead of a zombies map being reworked into a campaign mission, like it may have been done for Paris. And of course, in the very beginnings of zombies back in World at War, this was the case for every zombies map. Even Shino Numa, which was kind of its own thing, had assets from the campaign all about, but Noct and Verrucht were both taken directly from the campaign of World at War. And Doris, the first map that Jason Blundell ever worked on, well, it was also featured as a multiplayer map that came out as DLC along with the zombies version. So from the very beginning, reusing and redesigning map files has always been a thing. But then when we get to Black Ops 1, well, things get slightly more complicated. The first map in the game, at least on its cover, seems to be very original. We've never had a theater map before, except for maybe the mission Downfall from World at War, which did have this very open, theater area, but of course it wasn't a theater. This is the Reichstag, a government building for Germany's parliament, and it looks very different to what Kino became, so although it's possible it might have inspired Kino, and we do know that Kino was originally planned as DLC 4 in World at War, It's clearly been changed from the ground up, based off of this real place, actually, in Detroit. But there is one thing in Kino that's quite interesting, and although it's not like a physical part of the map, it is a model that can be found in one of the teleporter rooms, and it looks like some wooden blockout of some kind. It has these little towers and some buildings separated by a wall, and it turns out that this map is the Berlin Wall multiplayer map. One that actually hadn't released yet. It came out in the first DLC pack for Black Ops 1, but here it is being teased in Zombies as a little area for Sam to play with her figurines of her characters. And I suppose it does make a lot of sense for this little Easter egg to be in Kino because right outside of the theater, if you walk out the front door, you do see what is supposed to be the Berlin Wall, or at least I imagine so. As there's even this little tower here, which is definitely the same one that can be found in multiplayer. But this wooden blockout of the Berlin Wall was not just in Kino, it was also in the map 5, as well as the campaign mission USDD, and that brings us to another very good example of a reused and repurposed map. I know everyone knows this, but I do really think that 5 is a very good example of a zombies map that is extremely close to its counterpart in the campaign, but yet still a decent map, and is quite iconic. I think the way they were able to pull this off is for the mission USDD, you couldn't really do any exploring. In fact, there isn't a second anywhere in this mission where you can control anything else other than Mason's head movement. You can literally start the mission, go to the bathroom, scroll through TikTok or YouTube shorts until your legs go numb, and when you come back, you'll be on the next mission. So because of this very controlled environment the map was used for in the campaign, having it as a zombies map just worked, and in my opinion, worked really well. They kept a lot of what you see in USDD. The entire office space that you see in the mission is there just outside of the map of 5, and 5's spawn room was also in this mission. Although, of course, none of the window locations existed, and neither did that hallway with Quick Revive. But then lastly, there's the Inner Sanctum and War Room area. In the campaign, you come down here to meet JFK, and in Zombies, you open up this Inner Sanctum to access Pack-a-Punch. But there is a third level to the map 5, another floor that most certainly isn't in USDD, but it is in the Black Ops 1 campaign somewhere else. It was taken from the mission Rebirth, one where you infiltrate a research station to kill Steiner, or capture him if you prefer the perspective of Hudson and the CIA. But here, clear as day in this lab in the Rebirth facility is most certainly the third floor of 5. There's a few changes layout-wise, and of course there's no teleporters to be seen, but yeah, this is 5. And then for our very first DLC map in Black Ops 1, we got Ascension. A very clear remake of something that can be found in both the campaign and in multiplayer as well. But unlike 5, where the zombies map and the campaign are very similar, really the only thing that Ascension and its campaign counterpart Executive Order have in common is the rocket. Of course, there's tons of models in common too, but the layout of the map is completely different. And even though that's the case, I can't help but think if this was done today, the zombies community would be up in arms over it. But yet, here in Black Ops 1, the reception of Ascension was quite good, at least as I remember it anyway. I wasn't really in the zombies community back then, but I love this map, and it's probably the map I have the second most playtime on, behind Darius. But because upon loading up Ascension, the first thing you see is that rocket, and if you played the campaign at that point, you'll immediately recognize it. I feel like the community would really not be happy if this was done now. But then after the map Ascension came Call the Dead, a map that has nothing in common with multiplayer or the campaign, well, at least on its surface. There is this one mission from Black Ops 1 called Project Nova, and in it you fight through the Arctic playing alongside Dimitri from World at War. This mission was the thing that really set Black Ops 1 as a sequel to World at War, even though unlike the Modern Warfare franchise it wasn't as obvious, and of course the theme has changed significantly. Having this mission where you get to directly see the character that you played as back in those Russian World at War missions, even though now the roles are reversed and you're playing as Captain Reznov instead of having him lead you into battle, you're leading your former self into battle. This cemented Black Ops 1 as a sequel instead of an entire new series. But anyways, at the end of this mission, we approach a large ship, stuck in frozen waters, and we witness the death of Dimitri. We watch him get killed by gas before escaping, and then blowing up the ship, destroying the Nova 6 on board. And looking at this ship once again, it really seems like this campaign mission was used as inspiration for Call the Dead, but when you get up close, the ship is not the one from Call the Dead, so Even though Treyarch probably did use this to base the map off of, it seems like it has completely changed, just like Ascension did, I suppose. Although, even more so, as there's definitely no lighthouse or anything like that either. But then came Shangra-La, a map that doesn't resemble anything else in the campaign, really. I mean, it's very clearly taking from that Vietnam or Laos feeling that some of the campaign missions have, but as far as the geometry itself, it has very little in common with any of them. And looking back, it's actually kind of interesting how Black Ops 1 had such a mixed bag of maps. Like, some maps relied heavily on the campaign, while other ones were just set on their own, like Shangri-La. But moving on from that to Moon, you might think right off the bat that the same thing can be said about it. After all, there clearly wasn't any Moon mission in Black Ops 1, but as I said in the beginning of the video, this was originally going to be in Paris, and we were going to be fighting zombies beneath the Eiffel Tower. The Moon map, though, doesn't really seem to have anything left over from this original idea, except for the way that the teleporter functions, of course, sending you to a completely different area where zombies are endless, and you have to get out of there or risk being overrun. But although the main area here of Moon is very original from the ground up, Treyarch's substitute for the Endless Zombies area was also featured in a multiplayer map that came out alongside it, Hangar 18. Which I suppose, as the name suggests, is the same hangar from Moon, number 18. And to the left of it, you can even see that it has the same radar building that is outside of the map of the Zombies version. Of course, there is no teleporter in the hangar though, and in its place is an SR-71 Blackbird. Something that, in the setting of Black Ops 1, was very much so a top-secret project. So it makes a lot of sense that that would be here at Area 51, and makes you wonder if anything like that project is going on now. Anyways, even though the teleporter isn't here in the hangar, we do have the familiar Welcome to Groom Lake banner inside, and the teleporter, well, it's actually been moved somewhere else. In the back right corner of the multiplayer map, there is this little pod-like building, and inside of it is an apple that's just floating there with a weird tube structure above it and a whole bunch of electricity flowing around it. And as it turns out, if we no-clip under this apple, it seems that this is the teleporter from Zombies. Well, at least the bottom portion of it anyway. This is what we find underneath the pad that you stand on in Moon, only with some minor changes between the two. It's kind of cool because I definitely didn't notice this back in the day, and it was a really sly way for the devs to reuse some assets without, well, probably anyone noticing. Also, while we're at it, here is the map Hangar 18 in its entirety. Of course, this is supposed to be Area 51. It has a bunch of hangars and buildings, some jets, and even a massive runway leading off to the desert. But sadly, there's a distinct lack of UFOs, though, which I think would have been a great Easter egg to have outside of the map. But that leads us to the end of Black Ops 1, and honestly almost to the end of the video since there wasn't really a lot of reuse that happens after this, or at least that we know of at the time of making this video. But there are a few things to mention that I think are really cool, and one of them is in firing range. Other than that weird quarantine sign I mentioned in the intro, there's also this little flag here by the range that says "Please wait" on it. And of course, this is the same model from the Pack-a-Punch. And although it is only a model and not some part of the geometry, this one really stands out to me, since it's a model that is very unique to Zombies and always has been. It's a cool little Easter egg for sure, and paired with that bloody French-having sign, it could also be a hint at that Lost Paris map too. But moving on to another multiplayer map we have in the final DLC for the game, we got this one called Drive-Thru. Clearly a drive-in movie theater set somewhere in the United States, but inside this map there's an arcade, and each one of the machines has a reference to another Call of Duty map. Most of them are referencing the other 3 maps in the same DLC pack: Hazard, Hangar 18, and Silo. But there is one other arcade machine that says World at War Uber Shooter, and has an MP40 model that is being used as the controller. Although I think this is super cool on its own, I think this marks the first time of many that the Black Ops franchise would use arcade machines as Easter eggs. Going as far as in Black Ops Cold War, which had a very similar machine in it, but instead of an MP40, it was a PPSH, and of course you could actually play this as a side Easter egg in the map Forsaken. When you went up to it, you would be brought into Nocturne Toten, and forced, I suppose, to survive with very limited resources. This drive-through multiplayer map is a very cool but forgotten little map, and honestly, stepping back a bit from it, it really feels like this would fit in perfect as a bus stop in TranZit. The fields are filled with crops out there, and it even has this one road leading past it, and has this little church in the distance too. It definitely makes me wonder if TranZit was in development at this point at all, because the out-of-bounds area here feels so much like it. And although there is literally no evidence TranZit was inspired by this map, it's really hard to completely disregard it. There's just something about this area that just feels TranZit after having played it for so long. But speaking of TranZit though, that is our next stop, and as I said before, all of the zombies map from this point on are very original. I mean, there's Nuketown zombies of course, which is a blatant redesign of Nuketown, and an amazing one at that. And I suppose we should probably take a moment to say that that map was very well received, even though it was very clearly a redesign of a multiplayer map. And I think the reason that this is the way that they went about it. I mean, it wasn't a main zombies map, it was this extra little experience that was just for survival, and also, I should say, it costed extra money. You didn't get this with the normal version of Black Ops 2, you had to pay for it. So it felt to the community that this was like an extra thing that they just gave us, and it was done really well and added some extra story in there with it happening at the same time as Black Ops 1 Moon. I suppose it just kind of worked. But as far as the main maps go in Black Ops 2, this sort of marks the end of the reuse and reimagined strategy that had gotten zombies so far. Except for one area on TranZit, the Pack-a-Punch. This hallway here, hidden underneath the bank in town, is a reused and reimagined hallway from the map 5 in Black Ops 1. All of this modeling even matches, and so does the positioning of each window. The only real change is the obvious white walls, floor, and ceiling. Some things have changed outside of the map where the zombies spawn, and also the hallway was cut short as well, but it really does feel like it's hidden in plain sight. Like, when people think of reused maps in Call of Duty, I doubt TranZit comes to mind, but yet, here it is, 5 in TranZit. Which also, by the way, if you've been paying attention, that means that this basement of 5 has been reused 3 times. Twice in Black Ops 1 for the campaign and zombies, and then finally here in Black Ops 2 for TranZit. The rest of Black Ops 2 Zombies, however, is completely original. Unless I'm missing something here, Die Rise, Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins were all seemingly built from the ground up as their own maps. And although the Alcatraz in Mob of the Dead was clearly reused later on in the Call of Duty franchise, which perhaps we'll cover that in a future video, the last map I have something to say about is Origins. With the recent leak of the pre-alpha versions of Origins, we got a look at this town portion of the map that was scrapped. And like with Paris, it's this scrap geometry that we need to look at because of course people were paid to make these assets, so game studios don't want that work to go to waste. And although I very well could be wrong here, every time I look at the layout of this town we were supposed to get for Origins, my mind goes straight to Gorod Kurovi. I know this might seem like a stretch at first, and to be fair, it probably is either way, but I don't mean the buildings themselves, which were clearly unfinished anyway, and definitely look like nothing that we got in Gorod. I more mean this about the layout, this sort of oval-shaped path through buildings with a courtyard in between. It's the same idea as Gorod Kurovi, except of course it looks very different in Black Ops 3. But if you can imagine this pre-alpha Origins town without the church behind it, and instead that Operations Command building for Gorod, which is a picture I can't get out of my head when looking at this footage, man, it feels like this was repurposed for Black Ops 3. So was Paris Zombies remade into a campaign mission by Infinity Ward? Was Origins town reimagined for Gorod Kurovi by Treyarch? These are questions I definitely don't know the answer to. And hopefully we do get a little bit more information as time goes on. I would love to hear more about what has happened beyond the scenes, especially in this sort of Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 3 era. And it's also something I would love to have here on the channel one day too. But for now, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure to subscribe so you can come back for more. If you want to watch more of my content, you can click one of the videos on your screen right now, but if not, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay awesome, and peace out.